Today, our board president will give an update on the Tenassi Rebuild project, a change to the bylaws, and the possibility of a popular new amenity. It's coming right now, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Tellico Village POA Quarterly Board Update. I'm Carla Johnson, and I'm here today with Board President Marty Inkrott to talk about timely topics. Welcome, Marty, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Carla. Great to be here again.
We've just completed the first quarter, and one of the first orders of the board business was to elect officers for 2023. So you're here, so congratulations on being reelected as board president, and tell us about the other officers.
So, yes, I'm president again this year, and John Arguelles is the vice president, Bob Brunetti is the secretary, and Steve Schneider is the treasurer.
Okay, great slate. So these new officers and the rest of the board went straight to work, as always, and on a variety of issues, one of which was goals for the CEO, Chet Pillsbury, to work with him on his goals and approve them for 2023. What are some areas of focus for him this coming year?
So that's a good question. Every year, the CEO puts forward his goals for the board, and a lot of Chet's goals are what we put in as things we were looking for from a new CEO anyway. So, with him coming in and having an outside perspective, we wanted him to review staffing. How are we staffed compared with other communities that he's managed in the past? So just get a fresh set of eyes on that. Another big thing was with the Cooper land acquisition, coming up with a way to start turning in some profit on some of those properties. So he's focused on that. Another one was to take a close look at our food service contract, and he is working on a revision for that for this year, and then the plan is to potentially take that out for bid for 2024. The other thing that he's doing is he's reviewing our contract with LUB for water and sewer. Again, just looking at ways that we might be able to leverage that contract to either for service or potential cost reductions or something. Just look for opportunities there and working with LUB on that. And the final one that I'll talk about is just developing relationships with Loudoun and Monroe County officials.
So will he then give you updates on those, the progress toward those goals during the monthly meetings or quarterly, or how often do you get updates from him on those?
Yeah, the plan is, we don't necessarily allocate time every meeting, but yes, throughout the year during the board meetings, he'll be touching on those goals.
All right, so when he has news to report, then he'll be giving you that news. We'll invite Chet to come on the program later in the year and tell us a little bit about, those goals and objectives and how that's going. And we don't always get to button up our business at the end of every year like it's a nice clean start to the new year. So there are some projects that have carried over from 2022 into the first quarter of this year. One of those is Chota Road. And I know you got a report from Clayton Taylor on that. What's the story on that?
Yeah, so that did reopen in January. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, that's been a problem spot for a long time. And they dug it down to the base and redid it all, poured lots of concrete. So expecting that to be fixed the right way this time and hopefully last a long time. There's also traffic sensors in the road, so that are also sensitive to motorcycles. So I know the motorcycle people were wanting to be sure that was the case, and I don't think that was before. And some people may notice that the road's a little rough. Well, it certainly has ridges and other things in it just for skid control. So that's all intentional.
Okay, great. So everybody seems happy with the way that project turned out.
It turned out great, yes.
So another carryover project is the trash removal contract with Republic. How's progress on that?
Anybody that's been watching the board meetings know we have decided to stick with Republic through the end of the year. And that was more of a financial decision than anything else. So we are working on, Chet's working on a contract with Republic right now to take us through the end of the year. So keep paying your bills, and then we're going to be taking it to bid and see what we're going to do then for 2024. And we'll keep everybody apprised as things go along with that.
Okay, that sounds good. And what about, I know one of the questions is recycling, and we already know going forward that we will not have recycling service curbside. So do you have any idea, will that continue through the end of the year, or is that contingent upon the new contract that's being determined?
As soon as we sign the new contract, even for this year, recycling will go away.
Okay. All right.
We think a lot of it's being picked up with the trash anyway right now.
Okay.
But you know, that's just the way it's going to be, primarily for cost.
Right. So even though they're still picking it up right now, as soon as that new contract goes into effect, there will be no need to put out two separate things for
Yes,
trash and recycling.
and we'll let everybody know, or not we, but the POA will let everybody
Okay.
know what's coming and when, and probably be turning in the recycle bins at some point. So
Okay.
that'll all be communicated.
And that'll be in the telegram.
Yes.
Right. Okay. An ongoing challenge is that of funding amenities, striking the right balance between user fees and subsidies or assessments. The golf department faces the constant challenge of maximizing both revenue and member value. In February, former director of golf Chris Sykes left the village to pursue a new opportunity. Tell us about the changes in personnel and how they're working with the board regarding golf revenue.
So, you know, everybody that knows Chris knows he was a great guy, so we certainly wish him well in his new endeavor in Florida. But we also have got some really strong people. He built a strong team, so we've got some strong people to come in and take over for him. So Casey Flanagan is the new Director of Golf Operations, and Wells McClure is the new Director of Golf Maintenance. You talked a little bit about the financial side of it. We review that every year during the budget process. And that's where we come up with the rates for golf and the different packages that are available. Steve Snyder is the liaison, the board liaison to the Golf Advisory Committee this year. And one of the things that he's doing is putting data together in terms of, okay, how many rounds are being played by the people that have these all-inclusive memberships, right? So we're going to be looking at that and saying, okay, are those priced right? So we're going to be looking at that potentially for next year. And they're also looking at group outings, because when you have large groups like New Villagers, HOA, and other large groups wanting to play a scramble in the afternoon, well, the golf courses basically have to stop taking tee times 2 to 3 hours before that starts, so those people are through the process. So there's some lost revenue there. Mm-hmm. So not to say we don't want to have large group outings, especially these types of things, but is there a better way of doing it? So they're going to be looking at all kinds of things like that.
As you know, I work at the Tenasseee Pro Shop, and one of the things that's happened with the guest play, outside guest play only being allowed on the weekends, is that we're filling those tee times, right? So so our members are having more tee times to choose from, so I feel like that's been a positive change.
You know, it is, and the flip side of that is it's less revenue coming in, because those are our highest paying rounds are our guest rounds. But we realize the golf courses are here primarily for the residents, so it is an amenity, and that's why, you know, we're probably going to be seeing a continuation of, people want to call it subsidies or whatever, an investment by all homeowners into the golf amenity.
Speaking of golf, the Tenasseee Rebuild Project. So anyone who drives past the Tenasseee Golf Course on 444 doesn't need a reminder that the clubhouse was lost due to a devastating fire last August. Since then, a rebuild committee was formed and steady progress is being made toward replacing this facility. What's the latest?
As we mentioned before, the biggest thing that we were trying to do initially is just get golf operations back up and running. And so I think the team there has done a great job. We have the cart barn all set up, so that's close by right now. The new temporary clubhouse has just shown up from Clayton Homes, so they'll be getting that put together, and the plan is to have that ready sometime in April, so ready for the big golf season. As far as the old building goes, still working with the insurance company. We actually had another civil engineering company come in and look at the foundation, and they're basically saying that it is not suitable to be building anything on. So now we're taking that back to the insurance company and trying to get the rest of the money for the value of the pre-existing structure.
Okay, and I know that information is contingent upon next steps to be able to get going on the rebuild. So,
and as far as, just so I finish here, as far as the new building goes, we have sent out RFPs to 14 different architect firms. So we're hoping to hear back from them by around the 1st of April. and we'll down select that to a few and then make a decision and hopefully get running on the new building process as well.
Okay, and I know then the next step after hiring the architect and when they get some building designs together, that's going to be run by the property owners, right? So they can kind of see the progress as
Yes.
we move toward the rebuild.
Every step along the way, just like Chet did before, we will have town meetings or some type of a meeting open to all residents so people can see where we're leaning and what the options are that we face and try to gather input.
Okay, and if anybody wonders why it takes a little while for the temporary clubhouse to be open and be able to be used, tell us a little bit about the steps that have to be taken now to get that ready to go into operation.
Yeah, so Clayton Homes basically sets the structure and they'll have it all, the roof done and everything else, but we've got to put in the HVAC. We have to set it all up on the inside so it looks like a golf pro shop. We have to put decking around the outside, as far as the entrance going in and make it handicap accessible. And then we're going to put decking around the back so people can sit there, especially in the summertime, after their round of golf. So we're not going to have food service there, but just like we had when we redid Tokwa, there will be a cooler in there with beer and other drinks that people can enjoy after their round.
Okay.
And snacks, I guess, too.
So it's not just like you can pull in the modular home and it's ready to go. It
That's
takes
right.
a little
There's
bit
still
to get
a lot
it
of
going.
work, 3 to 4 weeks of work to get it ready.
Right.
Yes.
So I know at every board meeting, the board reviews various kinds of finances. And so one of the things that CFO Mickey White presented to the board was, a couple of things, a couple of policies related to finances. And they go hand in hand, the investment policy and the reserve fund policy. What can you tell our viewers about that?
Let me start with reserves. I mean, that's been the topic for several months now at our board meetings and during budget and everything. And I want to start by saying that, Tellico Village is in great shape financially. We have over $1 million in operating cash. We have over $17 million in reserves right now, so we're sitting really well. But we simply need to be building up those reserves in anticipation of investments that we're going to need to be making in the next several years. I mean, we've got $13 million in water investments that we're likely going to need to make. Another $6 to $7 million in sewer upgrades that we're going to be needing to make. And then roads. Roads are going to be a huge investment. So that's why we're doing it. And one of the things that Mickey is doing is putting together a 10-year plan for the reserve fund, just like we do with our 10-year budget. So basically chart it out. Here are the things that we know that we're going to have to be paying for year after year for the next 10 years. And what's that doing to our reserve balance? So that's charted out. That's on the website. It's a good piece of information for anybody that's interested in knowing exactly where that money is going and what the expected balance of that's going to be going into the future.
And the basic need for a reserve fund is?
The basic need is to maintain our existing assets. But the other thing I don't want people to lose sight of is it's also for new amenities. So when we talk about the reserve study, its focus is on maintenance of existing assets. But we also have a reserve for new amenities, which is good because now with the Tenasseee rebuild, we do have some money already allocated in there that'll help us offset some of those costs.
And that just kind of illustrates the need for continually putting money into those reserves as you're spending money to repair and replace things, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all of our money, and it's in a savings account ready to be utilized when needed.
So it sounds like we're in pretty good shape with our reserves. What about the investment policy?
So yeah, that's something else that Mickey White has been working on. He's been working with Morgan Stanley and with the Finance Advisory Committee to put together an investment policy. We have one now, but it's basically just putting them in cash equivalent type of investments, which is fine because one of the main goals is to preserve our principal, right?
Right.
But he's in working with Morgan Stanley. They think that we can, without a whole lot of risk, maybe elevate some of those investments a little bit and still maintain the risk portfolio that we want, but hopefully get a little bit better return. So he's divided it up into what he calls short term, which is 2 years or less, medium term 2 to 7 years, and long term greater than 7. And as you get into each of those buckets, the investments get a little bit more risky, but certainly it won't be anything that we'll be risking losing principal. So he'll talk more about that as the policy is built out, but that's the general focus of it.
And you have goals for the impact that you hope that has on the funds, correct? Or he will?
Yes, yes. I mean, he's already put money in some different instruments just to get, easy 4 to 5% versus what they were in before, which is 1 or 2%. Right. So we're not talking about 10, 15, 20% gains here. We're talking about investments that are just above cash equivalent grades.
Right. 2 other reports given to the board this quarter are also intertwined, and those were from the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee and from marketing. And that was Chief Marketing Officer Beth Kuberka who gave you that report. In fact, the strategic plan also includes the 10-year projections and reserve budgeting. So what did the board learn from these reports, and how do they affect you?
So I think one of the primary things is that we really want to leverage the long-range plan as an active document and an active input into our planning process, be the strategic plan as well as our financial plans. So that's one of the things that we're working with the Long Range Planning Committee on right now, and it happens to be one of their primary goals for this year, is to how do we tie the things that are in the strategic plan into the 10-year budget plan. That'll definitely make them more active participants in that whole role, and it won't be something that we just put together this nice strategic plan and put it on the shelf and don't do anything with. Right. So that's the whole idea there. So we will be updating that probably on a 3-year cycle, something like that, and see how it impacts the budget, and you have that all laid out as part of the budgeting process. And I mentioned earlier about Mickey having the reserve 10-year plan. Well, this will fit right into that. So not only will we have the maintenance items that are already in there, but also any new amenities or whatever else that the Long Range Planning Committee comes up with that says these are needs that we as a growing community or as a community that we have now need at some point in the future.
Let's move on to hot topics. So I know the board considered some topics during the first quarter that became hot topics with the property owners. So let's do a quick rundown. You ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Short-term rental policy.
So Chet's looking at potential revisions to that, and he's going to be holding a town hall for anybody that has rentals or is interested in learning about them to help put something into this new policy, the things that they think are important.
Documenting board votes.
That one's been kind of interesting. We just changed that to where we were just saying pass or fail in our minutes. And not to throw Chet under the bus, because he will admit it, he's the one that said we should do it that way, because that's the way they did it in other communities. And he really didn't want to have any of the board members going around saying, well, I didn't vote for that, so therefore I don't. The whole idea was if something passes, the whole board gets behind it. But because of the backlash we got from it, we're like, you know what, it's not that big a deal. We're just going to go ahead and put the votes back in. So in the minutes, we will have, if something is voted on and it passes like 6-1, we'll have the who dissented, just so that's captured.
Great. All right, amendment to the bylaws.
So what that is that's for board members. So if a board member is basically selected to fill in somebody that's left or resigned or whatever, and that term that is remaining is still over half the term or greater than 18 months, what the new bylaw says is that person can then only run for one more additional term. Okay. And we're affectionately calling that the Steve Schneider rule, because that's the position he was in, and it wasn't enforced, and we wanted him back on, so it worked out great. But in the future, Steve would not have been able to run again for another term.
Okay. House Bill 1116.
That's been an interesting one as well. The whole idea there was Chet was putting together a bill to basically have sources of funds other than just from property owners to pay for our ongoing maintenance. So the whole idea was to have a tax, not a tax, but a bill on the sale of a home, on the closing, that the buyer would pay, kind of like a buy-in fee. Well, that got misrepresented as an exit tax, because you can always say, well, it's ultimately going to be on the seller anyway. But being that it was something common in the industry, and something that we felt too that could take some of the load off of homeowners, that it was something good to pursue. So we're still pursuing it. Lowell Russell took it out of the committee for this year because of the pushback, but we're hoping that as people become a little bit more aware of what it really is and the potential impact in our community, that it'll be seen as a positive thing. You know, if you look at 300 to 350 homes selling in a year, that's $750,000 to $875,000. That's equivalent to 6-7% increase in our annual assessment.
Yeah.
So it's some sizable money.
Significant, yes. So that is a significant amount of money, and it's a significant enough issue that our CEO had a town hall meeting about it.
Yes, in fact, he had always been planning to do that as a communication to the residents. And as he submitted the bill to Lowell Russell, you know, he had already had it on his plan to communicate to the residents, so he thought that would happen well in advance of the bill being put forth. Well, Lowell is too efficient, I guess. He got it put out quicker than what Chet had thought, so it got out there prior to the town hall meeting, well, which he did explain it, and I believe to most people that were there understood and agreed with it.
Bocce ball.
Bocce ball. So the bocce ball group presented to the board last month in February, and basically came forward with a proposal for how they would like to have a few bocce ball courts installed. I mean, it sounds great. I think it would be a great amenity for Tellico Village. So the charge that the board gave them was to work with the POA, Chet and his team, to identify a location, identify how it would operate, and ongoing maintenance and things like that. How's it going to be funded? And they're working with Timeless Tellico on that as well. So more to come on that as they build out that plan.
Okay. And that's it for Hot Topics. Well done. And for this edition of the POA Board Update. So thank you, Marty. We really appreciate you being here every quarter.
Thank you.
CEO Chet Pillsbury is holding regular town hall meetings, and they're open to all property owners. So far, they've been very informative and well attended. It's an excellent opportunity to ask questions and get official information about all things Tellico Village. And watch the Telegram for dates and times of upcoming town hall meetings. To subscribe to the Telegram, visit tellicovillagepoa.org, select the News tab, then Telegram. And thank you for tuning in for your POA Board Update. And remember, you can watch the live stream of board meetings as they happen or later on demand. Just visit the TVN YouTube channel under Live and you will find videos of past board meetings. Be sure to join us again next quarter for more timely topics. As always, thank you for watching Tellico Village Network.